202. All right, it's getting dark. I wanted to make this video that nobody will watch. This is for you scientists out there. This is a skeptic channel, so I talk about whatever. Now, I want to talk about UFOs, but I want to talk about a particular UFO that was seen. Uh, it was in the shape of an obelisk, and what happened was that UFO, what it did was it entered into the water at a high rate of speed, and there was no splash. So there was no breaking in the waves or anything. It just, no sound, no nothing. It just boom. And it was, when it hit the water, it didn't slow down. It kept going at a high rate of speed. And, when you watch divers like Greg Louganis and all those people who were, just ridiculous at Olympic diving, you see how they have to do their body to come down where the water doesn't break. And that's how they're graded on their points. And I was thinking to myself, well, if an object like an obelisk, especially, and it was a large one too, moves at a high rate of speed, it comes down and hits the water, there's going to be, you know, a big splash. It's going to slow down and probably bob a little bit, then it'll sink. That's naturally what we would see, but that isn't what happened. And I was thinking, how can that happen? How can that UFO break the waves, keep going at a high rate of speed with no splash? One of the concepts I came up with is, maybe it had a point at the beginning, kind of like divers do when they fold their hands, boom, and go in the water, boom, very little splash. No, that wasn't the way it was shaped. Plus, something that large is still going to make a break, because all divers make a break in the waves, even though it might not be much. Then I said, okay, what if, okay, and let me add to this, these objects are able to travel like this, any way within our atmosphere at the same rate of speed without, okay, here's an example. There was a UFO at O'Hare, uh, um, in Chicago, the airport, and everybody saw it. What it did was it came down, it hovered about 100 feet off the ground or more, and then it went back up in the sky at a high rate of speed, and it broke the clouds, where it just left like a hole in the clouds. It was like shoo. And I thought, okay, this thing went from 0 to like a couple hundred miles an hour like right now. Usually we'd have something to build up and, do that rate of speed. But this thing hovered like an AV Harrier jump jet and then just took off. So it went from 1 to 0 and boom, it accelerated. And so these other objects are able to do the same thing. They're able to travel, in all kind of directions at a high rate of speed without slowing down and then turning and then slowing down and, making a curved turn like our airplanes do. Our airplanes can't do that. They can't go somewhere, stop, take off already at maximum speed and keep doing this. And I'm thinking, the only way you could be able to manipulate gravity in that fashion is if you had an engine that gave off a frequency around the hull of the object. Stay with me. Stay with me, nerds. Nerds and neighbors. Stay with me. I'm not crazy. But these are things I think about. I've talked about this before. So the question is, if that object can move through the air without affecting gravity, and then move or being affected by gravity, meaning there's no friction. Because when the speed of sound was broken, or when it is broken at what, 500? Or what is it? I don't know what the speed of sound is. But when it's broken, 700, I think. Boom, you hear a boom. And a sonic boom. And so you have this resistance to that, though. There's mad friction. There's plenty of pilots who can tell you about it, and we have plenty of people who died because of friction. Uh, Same issue what we have with our space program. When spaceships coming in, it has all this friction, and this is how we lost one of them because the friction caused fire. The fire melted the insulation under the heating plates. The heating plates exposed the ship, and within seconds, the ship was gone. So you had this. You have the same thing when Challenger. I think it was going up. Boom. This thing that was iced over caused an explosion, and the explosion was instant. So, nonetheless, you guys can look further into that. But nonetheless, so it made me think if there's no friction from an object moving from one place to another at a high rate of speed, then you're going to get rid of your fire problem and and all this other stuff that we had with our space shuttles blowing up. We had 3 of them blow up. One of them was in practice. It was stationary. Okay, so here's what I think. And I've talked about this before. I called it a pulse engine. And the reason why I called it a pulse engine is because whatever would be inside of the engine would give off a frequency or a pulse, a high rate of speed pulse that would be the same frequency as any molecule that it wanted to be around or be within. So the atmosphere has, molecules, friction, molecules. If you were vibrating on the same frequency that the molecules around you were traveling on, then they wouldn't even know you're there. There would be no fire. There would be nothing to resist you because you're vibrating on the same frequency. So, but it would be inside a ship, but it would affect the whole hull. So, the same thing with a water molecule. What is the frequency of a water molecule? And it would be, what's going on? I'm all right. So the frequency of a water molecule, I don't know what it is. But nonetheless, it wouldn't matter how dense the water is, or say even oil, which is more dense. It wouldn't matter how dense it is. The pulse engine would be able to vibrate on the same frequency as any liquid that it wanted to travel through. If it wanted to travel through a bowl of soup, it'd be, you wouldn't know it's there. Now, I'm thinking about this concept because, there's a lake within the ocean. Settlements that are heavier. The salt is heavier than fresh water. So, and this is one reason why salinization is so important. But nonetheless, there's a large lake. One of them is like a mystical lake. They think it's a gateway to another dimension, and it might be because the people that lived around it said, "Hey, it's a gateway to another dimension." And but nonetheless, the lake is undisturbed, and it's sitting in the ocean. It's like okay, this is undisturbed, and I thought, well, the lake, the only difference is the salt settlement that creates this lake, but it's undisturbed by the water that's already around it. And I was thinking, well, if the molecules are all vibrating on the same frequency, then it doesn't even know it's there. I think the same thing is happening for spaceships. I think, look, when Ezekiel said he saw a spaceship, this is in 500 AD, he said, it's in the book of Ezekiel. He said, I saw a spaceship. And he said it was a wheel within a wheel and had eyes of fire all around it. And he said and everywhere the wheel went, there were beings. And everywhere the wheel went, they went. And he said, and he was explaining how it would move, you know. So I think the only way you could do that is if the hull was vibrating on a different frequency, and that frequency matched every material that it was in or could be in. And yeah, I don't think it's a special type of metal. I think it doesn't matter. It could be plastic. If you put a pulse engine inside of a plastic object, then this plastic object could actually sit right here in front of you and float, because gravity would have no effect, none whatsoever. And then you could push it and it would just go and keep going until it decides to stop, just like space, because that's what happens in space. So I was thinking, you don't need to go to I was thinking, if you brought outer if you brought the element of outer space onto an object, well, I don't want to say that, but you guys know what I'm saying. It's a wheel within a wheel. Pulse, the frequency. It's a wheel within a wheel. It's the same frequency. It's your boy Tone 202. Peace.